What's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about a fragrance from the house of Mancera, and it features a note that, quite frankly, I don't think anyone hates. Strap up. Let's go for a ride. All right. Welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the afternoon. Listen, if you're new to the channel, appreciate you for stopping by. Hey, this is a fragrance channel where I talk about my fragrance journey, and any tricks, tips, and gold nuggets that I find along the way, I'm going to share it with the community. So don't look at this as like an educational, super sophistical, you know what I'm saying, type of gig. I'm sharing my journey. Some people call me the scientist. Some people call me the professor of fragrance. But that's their opinion. I'm just a guy who collects fragrance, loves fragrance, and wants to share my story along with anything helpful that I've discovered along the way that I think can impact your journey through fragrance, and to encourage people that the fragrance community exists and it is plentiful right now. There's so many different options, so many different price points. Everybody can get in the game. With that being said, today from the house of Mancera, we have Amberful. Shout outs to my man Gator for providing this sample. In the same way that on Hot Takes, I say, you know, today's episode is brought to you by Ulta Beauty or something like that when I'm doing Hot Takes. This episode is brought to you courtesy of Gator from at The Novice Knows. That's Knows, not Nose. So appreciate you, Gator, for that. Let's get into this Mancera's Amberful. I don't really know much about it. So when I don't know anything about a fragrance, I just dive right in. Mancera, from what I understand, is just known for making really elegant and beautiful fragrances. They never really lack quality. It just comes down to whether or not the fragrance is amazing, okay, or lackluster. But there's never really a question of quality in formulation, at least from my experience. And I've gone through about 4 or 5 fragrances. I just don't know much about the house. It's just a common name that you hear in FragCom. Just looking at the notes here while this dries down, because it is quite powerful, you'd typically expect to find amber in this fragrance, which I'm cheating a little bit. Yes, there is amber in the fragrance, but I don't know. Is it the star of the show? Is it a highlight? Is it an accent? Where are we going with this? Just a little bit of extra news for you while I let this dry down, because it is quite potent. It says, Amberful Mancera is an oriental woody fragrance for men and women. This is a new fragrance launched in 2024. So it's it's very new. And we're going to just dive right into it. So I like the fragrance a lot. It's not blowing my mind, but it's fresh. It's citric. It's sweet. It's amberful, you know. It kind of feels, give me a minute with this, because like there is forward citrus, you know what I'm saying? Like almost like a perfect combination between lemon and lime. Like if they're actually mixed together and then you get what they've created, that's what it smells like, because it's not entirely lemony. It almost feels like a special kind of lemon, you know what I'm saying? Like a different edge that kind of has like a different, slightly different flavor palette to, it's not a common lemon note. Let me put it that way. So that's either because it's a special lemon or because it's rubbing up against another citrus, which might be like a bergamot or lime or something like that. But it's definitely got like this light, fresh, unique lemon note doused in amber, and almost like, I feel like it has a floral backdrop. Like it almost has a similar floral note as something like Ganymede or Amir Celestial, where it's got like that violet leaf. I'm starting to become really familiar with violet leaf and how it's rendered. I think with a lot of fragrances, unlike vetiver or woods or something like that, violet leaf so far in my fragrance experience has been rendered pretty equally throughout different fragrances that I've tried. I believe Mercedes-Benz Intense is one that comes to mind. I believe, don't quote me on that, Amir Celestial or Ganymede's definitely got violet leaf in it. And now with this fragrance, I just feel like it must be a violet leaf, or maybe some other floral for that matter. I think it's violet leaf though. So some kind of lemony citric vibe with violet leaf or floral or something. And then in the base, obviously, I saw amber, but I don't know what else is there. But it doesn't really smell like anything else is there. Maybe just a simple note of wood just as a backdrop, even though I don't get like super woodsy vibes. Maybe like cedar on like 5% or something like that, but just wood and mostly amber. So in a nutshell, you kind of have this almost like this 60 to 70% bubble of like lemon citric, but it's unique lemon. It's not simple lemon like our Mauve Très Nuit or something like that. It is a unique lemon. Like it's not just fresh and aromatic, but it has a different twang to it. And then this, it feels like this violet leaf sweetness, but it might just be another floral. I'm not sure. So like, again, 60% of this robust citrus, natural blast, this coating of violet leaf. And then in the base, where it's not just a base that hides, it's a base that's very much present, but it's just a backbone of this fragrance. Seems like woods and obviously amber. Very sweet, very warm, but also very fresh and aromatic. Because it's fresh and aromatic, you know, I think without the fresh aromatic quality, it might be closer to like a 7 out of 10 in terms of sweetness. But I think with the aromatic and freshness, it dials it back to maybe like a nice 5 or 6. If you're familiar with Amir Celestial, since we're in the vein of, you know, kind of this violet leafy mineralic or whatever, you know, it's on equal playing field of that power in terms of sweetness. I really like the fragrance. I think it's a great everyday wear that still has uniqueness. It's not just freshy with charm. It's slightly above that due to the quality and some of the nuance in the fragrance. Now, enough of me blabbing since I've been talking for 7 minutes. Let's go ahead and check out the notes. So on the screen here, we have Calabrian, bergamot, and yuzu. I believe yuzu is lemon. Let's just go ahead and look it up. Yuzu is a citrus fruit plant in the family of Chinese origin. Yuzu has been called, I mean, so it looks like a lemon. It looks like a type of lemon. But anyways, nonetheless, on the top we have yuzu and bergamot, and I feel like that is the dominant note that I'm talking about with the 60 or 70%. Pink pepper, none to really speak of. I think pink pepper is kind of just assisting to add like this kind of harsh aspect, which doesn't translate harsh. It translates more as like fresh, airy, aromatic. You don't get pepper at all. Nutmeg, not so much. Amberwood, okay, sure, absolutely. Violet leaf, there goes that violet leaf. Patchouli, you know, in my experience with patchouli, it kind of adds this dimension of earthiness, like it makes a fragrance more robust. I don't get a ton of patchouli there, but I do get it a little bit. And here we go, usual suspects that I was mentioning, cedar and amber. You know, moss, in my opinion, when I think of moss, at least in my recent memory, I think about something like Hassavat. Hassavat really douses the moss. You know, it's like Cretaventus with a heavy wave of moss to add this super robust, rich, earthy tone to it and just hyper masculinizes it comparatively to like a very bright, zesty birch, pineapple, lemon that you get with Cretaventus. So the moss tones it down. Similarly, I think on the dry down, the moss really creeps out into this fragrance and gives it not just the slightly above freshy with charm category, but it also masculinizes this. You know, surprisingly, this fragrance is unisex, which it's so funny. I think it just slightly leans masculine due to the moss. But it's so beautiful of an amber and violet leaf and lemon rendition. You know, it's almost in the vein of one of the Louis Vuitton fragrances kind of vibe that I feel like a woman could really sophisticate this out. I do think it's like an everyday wear, like it could be, but it shouldn't be. Like you should really pull this out of your bag maybe a couple times a week. It is super easy to wear, but I think the sleeper here is that it's surprisingly sophisticated, in my opinion. It's not just lemon, it's yuzu. It's not just bergamot, it's Calabrian bergamot or Calabrian bergamot, and then just violet leaf, cedar, amber, but it still somehow like comes off very unique on the dry down. I'm really impressed with this dry down because it almost even has some soapy quality to it, like a lemon soap, but it's not cheap soap. It's almost in the same soapy vein as like Tom Ford's Grey Vetiver. Even though they use grapefruit with that, it kind of gives you a similar kind of fresh, soapy clean spritz. But believe me, there's a ton of dimension going on with this fragrance. And don't let one part of my description put an image in your head that's not there. This fragrance is sophisticated. It's got great performance and projection. I don't really know about sillage, but projection is definitely there. I think it's easily going to be a 6 to 8 hour fragrance. Just to double check here, let's see what everybody is saying. They do say it's long lasting and strong. What I like about this fragrance is the initial projection you're going to get in the first hour is going to be incredible. But I do notice on the dry down, it settles into being a little less powdery, right? It kind of has this powder to it at first. It's hard to even think through that, right? Violet leaf, lemon, bergamot, and amber are so like fresh and aromatic. It's hard to imagine this being powdery. But believe me, on the first initial blast, it feels powdery. And then all that powder kind of dissipates. And what you're left with is just the rest of the components of the fragrance. I really like it. I'm stuck between an 8 or a 9, guys. I think it would be an 8 for people who buy, who have a lot of Mancera or MFK or Parfums de Marly or Creed. If you're into the finer things in life and you've acquired several bottles, I think those type of people would call this an 8. But I think if you're somebody who shops retail, this could easily be a 9 signature everyday fragrance for you. Usual suspects here is going to be an everyday wear, any season, any reason, any age. I think for younger people under 20, it does have a slight elegance to it, but it's still playful. So I think it could absolutely work for you. If you're younger than 20, this is a fragrance you could easily rock every second of the day and just be totally happy. Who doesn't love amber and sophisticated lemon and violet leaf? And don't let the violet leaf fool you. Even though it's very much there, it's not feminizing the fragrance to me. It's just freshening it. It's giving it a freshness and a sweet dustiness that this fragrance absolutely needs. Again, I do think it leans slightly masculine due to the moss note. Even though there's not a lot of moss, it might just be about like 15% in the fragrance, but it's still there. It's not hiding a ton. It's present. I still think women's fragrances with notes that are earthy can still rock super crazy, especially when you consider that this is a citrus on woods with a touch of floral based fragrance. A lot of female fragrances are like that, so I think it could do very well on a woman. But I do think it slightly leans masculine, but I also am acknowledging live that I think that's just my opinion. You know what I'm saying? On many women, I think it'll assume its role and be amazing. This fragrance can run you, let's look online. If my internet will ever load. Wow, I'm quite shocked by how slow my internet's going here, guys. I apologize. Yeah, I mean, it looks like you can get this fragrance from anywhere between... Dang, you know what? Let me just take you to my window so you guys aren't bored. Because either my internet's not working well or something. But let's see, Mancera. What is this called? Amberful. Okay, so on Fragrance Buy, which I feel like typically has a lot of the best fragrances or best fragrance prices, it's looking at about $100. You know what I'm saying? Which I think it's absolutely worth it for sure. I haven't heard a lot about this fragrance, guys. So I don't know like the demand for it. I've never really seen it on like Facebook groups and stuff like that. But nonetheless, it's worth every dollar. And I think it's worth 100 ml. You know, this could easily be someone's signature fragrance or just something that people wear a lot. It's very easy to wear, but again, it's got everything that you want in like an expensive-ish type of fragrance. Final thoughts. I think if you know, alternatives, you know, I think in the clone world, this is some type of cross between like a Lamensite or Imagination DNA and like a Green Irish Tweed type of DNA, because it's got that like beachy playfulness, you know, with the citrus. It's got this odd amount of sweetness from the violet leaf, and the way the sweetness from the violet leaf and the lemon pair together feels all borderline tropical, but not quite. And more like poolside with some kind of alcoholic beverage, that type of citrus. So I think in terms of like structural DNA, that's where I feel it lands, is like maybe Imagination with a little bit of Green Irish Tweed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the moss kind of is reminiscent, like moss and lemon kind of take me in the arena of that Creed fragrance. But then the lemon and bergamot and amber kind of move me towards Imagination a bit. But then there's this earthy draw too. So I think, you know, you could try combining those two fragrances as a clone, or you could just purchase them. You know, there's tons of Imagination clones that are under 20 bucks. Or Lamensite clones that are under 25 bucks. Green Irish Tweed. You have the Armagh Très Nuit, which honestly, as a clone, it can be an everyday wear for somebody, like just an easy grab, Nautica Voyage style, just grab and spray. But I find that the only time I'm really busting it out these days is to mix it with other things. So this could also be a great challenge for you to try, is to throw some Imagination clone with Très Nuit and see if you can pull this off. I think you can definitely get there. Or even like an Imagination DNA with something like Lalique's Ecus, which heavily leans into amber and vetiver. Those could be great alternative cheap combos for you. But in the expensive category, I think Lamensite and Imagination are in the same family as this type of fragrance. But that's just my opinion. Let me know if you've tried this fragrance at all, but I definitely think it's a banger. It's a 9 for me. I think FragCom might give it probably an 8 or a 9, but it's definitely worth every penny, and I really enjoyed this fragrance. Shout outs to my man Gator. Like, comment, and subscribe as usual. More importantly, turn on that notification bell. You need to know when I'm dropping new episodes on fragrance, because it's very helpful. I try to bring entertainment, a lot of different switch ups in content that I feel like a lot of the YouTubers aren't doing. You know, the entertainment value, going beyond the fragrance and talking more use case and notes and things like that. We get under the hood on a lot of stuff, but I try to mix it all up so that you're not always getting technical information, you're getting practical information. You're not always getting super nerdy fragrance information, but you're also getting entertainment value. And that's me and my vibe, and what I think FragCom is missing. And me being myself with my style, I think I can add that to the space. If you're into that stuff, or you appreciated this episode, make sure you shoot me a subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. Talk to me, I talk back, and have a blessed week. This was Mancera's Amberful, and it was amber full of beauty. Love that fragrance. Absolute banger. Until next time, this is the Scent Bubble signing out.